main traces in your writing is the focus on technology and how this technology affects your view or your character's view on the future. I think that is something that really it's a mark on your fiction, not on your poetry. I've read your poetry, basically. So could you tell us how this treatment of time, all of you, how you work on time when you construct your characters, your women? Because I assume your main characters are always women?
Not in my case, not really.
Great.
Well, first of all, thank you to everybody here, and to the Spanish committee for having brought us here. In this case, I love coming to international festivals, but as I know you haven't read my work and you won't probably read much, you will maybe Google me and find something in English. I think what it will be good for all of us, or I would like to add something to this festival, and is to, if you can get a small idea of what women are writing in Spain, and you might think, oh, it's more or less the same worries or interests that writers have here in India, or not. I would like, that's the idea of sharing culture, I think. So Alejandro kindly mentioned technology, and sometimes when we think of technology, you might think of mobile phones or this social media. I think if you focus your writing on those things, it will get old very, very, very soon, your literature, because Facebook now is something important, but then in 10 years' time it will be totally out of fashion, probably. There will be something else. So I think, I always think of writing of my time. That is clear for me. My times are not so, our times are not so different from other times in terms of feelings, emotions, maybe of values. I think I am a sociologist who doesn't have an education as a sociologist, so she's cheating through friction and poetry. I try to do some sociology in poetry as well. I think that's possible, or I want it to be possible. And what I am really concerned about is about consumerism, because apparently literature has, at first sight, or the basic ideas we have about literature or the arts is that they have to convey good things about human beings, and also the idea of telling about our emotions, about our relationships with other people. But I think in these societies we are living in, I think India, Spain, and many other societies will share this, we are very attached to our possessions, and they have a highly symbolic power. Our smartphones, for example, they are too important for us, I think, sometimes. So I'm interested in also in consumerism, and how we deal with our things, and with our desire of getting something more, because we are all not, I don't know how to say, but we are all born to be consumers, or the system wants us to be consumers. So I am interested in analyzing the human being now as a consumer. That doesn't look very lyric or poetic, but I think there is a potential lyricism in all this.
I think there is. I mean, lyricism is everywhere. It depends on the way you model it or you treat it. The way. Let me tell you something. It's very weird that we are four Spanish people talking in English. For us, it's weird. You can relate to this. Could you imagine four of you speak, for example, Hindi, and coming up here and talking among yourselves in Spanish or Catalan? It's sort of weird. That's why this rhythm of conversation is weird for us. Anyways, just a little bit of a note. Inma, tell us something about you. But let me ask you something. There is a word that I've read about you that really catches me, and that was sorority. You know, like this relationship amongst women. You know, like a group, and making making a discourse out of it. I think that's sort of that interests you in a way. You use that as a part of your raw material to create, as a basis for creation.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I would like to begin also saying thank you, because I am really happy to be here, and it's really nice to be speaking in English with other Spaniards, because I think this is a way to understand us also. So if we speak in English, it is strange, but if we speak Spanish, for some of us it is also strange, because I speak and I write in Galician language, and Alejandro, for example, speaks and writes in both in Catalan and Spanish. So we are quite familiarized with changing languages.
Yeah, that's true.
But not in English. Well, for me, this question of sorority or of feminism is quite related to your first question to Mercedes about time, because we Galician writers are always writing about us as an identity, and I began writing sort of historic novels, and with a strong presence also of feminine characters. But with the time, I understood that I had to speak about present, because I needed to explain Galician identity from the present and not from the past, because Galician writers, I think they are too much concerned about past, and for me, our principal concern should be present and future, because without future, we are not going to have Galician identity or Galician literature or even Spanish culture and identity. And as a woman, I think that our main problem with identity is being a woman in present Galicia, or which is the same as saying being a woman in present Europe. And in this novel, in my last novel, I speak about 5 women in a prison, and I think this could be understood as a metaphor of a crisis, of a great crisis that is affecting all Europe, about what we are and what we want to be. And I think that feminism in this moment and in this main question has a lot to say. And I think that we should still vindicate feminism as a revolution, because maybe this crisis is our great moment to say something about what we want to be and what we should be in a redefined cultural Europe or something like that.
You know what? I think I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to explain to our audience where Galicia is in Spain, because I think they need to know.
Yeah.
You know.
Galicia is a very little country. Yes, thank you. It is in northwest Spain. It is just over Portugal, and we speak Galician language, which is something between Portuguese and Spanish. We understand easily, of course, Spanish, because we are bilingual, and I think Spanish speakers can understand with a small effort, can understand Galician, and I think it's easier to read, in fact, because they are all Latin languages. And Galicia is one of the, as Euskadi and Catalonia is one of the historic nationalities in Spain, because we have our own language, which is co-official with Spanish in our lands, not in all the territory. And I think I have explained it
Yes.
right clear.
Well, I think the interesting thing about Galicia is that there is a lot of people from Galicia in Latin America. I know
Oh,
that
yes.
there's a lot of students here that they study Spanish because they are related to Latin American companies and stuff. In Argentina, for example, there's a lot of Galician
Yeah.
people who migrate from Galicia to Argentina, to Mexico.
Yeah, because Galicia was a poor region in Spain, and a lot of Galicians had to migrate, and their destiny was to be migrants in Latin America, and in the I think that the great migrations were to Argentina, Buenos Aires, and Mexico. In Buenos Aires and Venezuela also. In Buenos Aires, we say a lot of times that we have the great Galician city, because in Buenos Aires there are more Galicians than in any Galician city. So there is, and they have a very strong cultural movement, Galician movement, also in Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires.
Yes.
Cristina, Sánchez Andrade. I think there's two. I was thinking that there's two words, since time is short. There's two words that I would like to discuss with you related to your writing, which are vulnerability and the past. How you? It's. I was thinking that maybe your kind of literature or writing or interest could be more defined as naturalist, in that way, that the past is very is powerful in the events, in the conforming of the novel.
Good morning to everybody. Very pleased to be here in such a beautiful place. It's our first time in India. We just arrived yesterday evening at 3, so we sort of sleepy, excuse us. We haven't had time to visit the city, but I guess it's beautiful. In my case, I think it's a bit different, slightly different to Inma's case. I was also born in Galicia, in Santiago de Compostela. Santiago de Compostela is like the capital of Galicia, and it is the end of the Pilgrim's Way. It's also an important piece of information that you should have. It's a beautiful city with a beautiful cathedral. We were both born there. But in my case, I've always lived in Madrid. So I was brought up in Castellano, which is the official language in Spain, apart from the Gallego and Catalan and Basque. So I write in Spanish, but all my characters, all my literature, the atmosphere of my books is very, very much Galician. This is because I spent all my summers, all my holidays, all my childhood, very nice moments. I spent them in Galicia. So I think I associate childhood and this unconscious raw material that is in my head in some way with Galicia, and moreover with the stories I was told as a child. That as in India, in Galicia, there's a very strong storytelling tradition. So in my case, my literature is very much influenced by the stories my grandmother and also my aunts used to tell us when we were small. And another thing I wanted to add maybe is that in my case, it is true that my characters are women, but not because of a particular reason. It's not something I do on purpose. I always tell the same thing. For me, characters are like dreams. It's not something that you choose, but it is imposed on you. So, of course, dreams have to do with what you lived or what you are thinking during the day, or what your obsessions are. But then you find out that you're writing about someone, and you ask yourself why. No, in my case, it's important to say that my characters are not chosen by me, but they chose me. So, and yeah, I have this sort of I don't know why, but couple of women. They were there in my very first book 20 years ago, and then there are in the a novel called The Winterlings, which is the one which has been translated into English, and there are again not the same people, but a couple of women in my last novel. My last novel is the case of an old lady, 80 years old, and his maid, her maid. And you were asking about time. In my case, I'm not very much interested in time. I don't really mind where my characters are. What I don't do is I don't construct urban settings, so all my settings are rural ones, in which technology doesn't appear at all, not even a telephone. I think I don't even have a telephone in none of my books, so it's very different to Mercedes and Inma's cases.
The thing is that I think you are three voices, very different and very representative of somehow of what we have in Spain. But the thing is that, for example, in your case, your poetry, you don't write poetry, Cristina and Inma.
Cristina is starting to write poetry. She told
you're beginning to write poetry.
Secret, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Well, I think all novelists are also secret poets.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Not
That's
me.
true.
Not you?
In my last novel there is a poem I tried to write, and all the people reading I was really proud of my poem, and all people reading my poem, I asked for, they said, well, okay, I think I'm not a poet.
But don't try a second time, right? But what about humor? That's one of the questions I have for you. How do you deal with humor in your novels? First, apart from this, I would like to say something which is not very politically correct, but you know, that's the way I am. If there is a publisher here, for them, just contact them, because their work is really worth it. So just, you know, keep it in mind. They're very powerful in a different way, but their color of fiction is very original. Plus, humor, sense of humor.
Well, in my case, I think, humor is one of the most important things in, it's like the salt in literature. First, because I have to have fun myself. So when I'm writing, I feel like, you know, so many times on your own that you really have to enjoy yourself, and that you have to laugh, or you have to whatever. I think that needs to be emotions somewhere. And then also because I write about Galician people, and in Galicia there's this sense of humor which we call retranca, which is typically Gallego. It's difficult to explain. It's like if you ask something to a Gallego, and he will answer you with another question. It's an interesting character, the Galician one, and and you have this feeling that they're always sort of laughing at you quietly. So I find very interesting this to imitate this in my novels through my characters. And yeah, I combine another thing I think is important. I combine humor with maybe very, in some cases, violence or quite violent actions. So, for example, in this my last novel, the two elderlies, these two old women, they're not very nice little woman. They are, sort of. It's a kind of road movie in which they get into a car and they start, living their lives and just killing people around. So, and what was I going to say about humor? But anyway, humor is one of the most important things in my, I think, yes, that I combine this humor with violence at the same time.
In my case, I think humor has saved my life in many occasions and put my life in risk in some others. But really, I think it's a tool that we can use it's to avoid how difficult life is for me, or to illuminate other areas, to cast light on areas that would be very dramatic doing it. I mean, I'm not gifted for tragedy, so I have to do humor. I'm bound to do humor. Okay. And I will add something that is not specifically related to humor, but is related to when you've mentioned women's writing. If we feel we are doing women's writing, and I never know what to say about this.
Yeah, I never.
But now I have in mind, because I was listening to this wonderful lady who was talking before, and she said that, for example, she was explicit in some of her poems, and apparently this idea of it seems that being explicit about sex is a way of being is the only way of being transgressive as a woman writing, for example. But I think there are as well other nuances of, for example, if you position your characters as women who don't choose to take care of the others, like I don't know. It depends on the position of a woman as a character, even if she doesn't show like explicit sex or anything like that. Is a decision, could be a very feminist decision. I am improvising, I know, but
we all improvise 24 hours
this is an
a day.
idea.
So
I will have to develop it better in the future.
We have 1 minute. Let me tell you. Go.
Well, sense of humor. I don't. I would like to have sense of humor. I think I have sense of humor, but I don't know if my sense of humor is like that in my literature. What I try in a conscient, in a aware way to put on my books is some irony. Irony in, and this is going to be quite snob, but you're understanding me. Irony in the sense of those philosophers of the 19th century who defined irony like a distance taken by the author to the characters, and in this distance is plenty of humor, because you have to judge them. And I think in my novels this is this kind of humor. For example, when I define myself as a character of the novel, being a writer who is in prison because she tried to murder a man, but he couldn't murder him because a lot of questions. I think this has something like humor, of course, inside, but it's a humor that provokes more a smiling than a laugh. And that's what I try to do.
We don't have much time left. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. This session was very, very revealing for me because I didn't know that there were different languages in Spain. And I thought Spanish is one, and we know Spanish literature only through English. So this was a revelation for me. So my question is, if you, like in India, if you have different cultures and, the conflict between like the North and the South and all that, in Spanish also, and there are Spanish writers who don't live in Spain but somewhere else and still write in Spanish. So do you have a conflict between cultures also?
Well, we actually have one, a very big one. I don't know if you've heard about the Catalan problem. Well, there's a... sorry? Well, yeah, the thing is, I'm not an expert in politics, and maybe Alejandro, who is Catalan, can tell us much better. But the thing is, to put it in a nutshell, Catalonia wants to be independent, and the rest of Spain doesn't want Catalonia to be independent. But maybe you can, and they speak a different language, of course, and Catalan, it's a mixture between Spanish and French. It's more difficult to understand than Gallego, for example, and also, well, they have. It is one of the autonomous. In Spain, we have 17 autonomous regions, so you can more or less make your. But and some of them are more developed, like the Galician one, the Basque Country one, the Catalan one. And Catalonia is one of them, but maybe you can explain. I'm not the right person to talk about Catalonia.
Let me say one thing before, because Catalonia has made that everyone forgot that before Catalonia there was a great struggle in Westland, for example. And I think that everywhere where there are different languages living together, there are sort of struggle. And I think in Spain we have times with a great high rise of the struggle, and other times these are related to crisis, economical crisis, and in other times that everything is quite more peacefully. And now we are in one of these great moments, but I think I hope it's going to pass.
I'm trying to think of a country in the world that doesn't have any conflict among its population. I think of Vatican City or Liechtenstein, but I don't think the rest. Also, even Switzerland, that looks so neat and perfect, they have different languages, and I guess they have their own things.
Also, it's important to understand that during Franco's times, all other languages and cultures in Spain were repressed. So it's something more or less new. Well, like 40 years or so. So, yeah.
Thank you. So I saw the topic of the panel discussion is supernatural, Earthlings, next door despots and unsuspecting objects.
We've gone out of the...
Yeah. So we were also discussing with some of your other members during breakfast that in Spain, recently some of the political parties, the new ones like Podemos or Ciudadanos, they have elected these handsome young men as their leaders. So as writers, do you think they are supernatural Earthlings, next door despots, or unsuspecting objects? Thank you.
How did we say this? What is happening in Spain now is supera la realidad. It's strong, stranger than fiction. So, but the situation we have now is it's like a novel. Well, as you said, you're very well informed about Spanish politics. Yeah, we are very lucky that we have all these young people around us. all these new parties with very young people and lots of women, which is also an important thing. I don't know if you want to add anything else. I'm from Singapore. How is it you've heard about, in such detail, about Spanish politics? You even know the names of our politicians. That's incredible. Sorry?
We don't deserve this audience, I think. We have such a good audience who are really aware about lots of little details about Spain and so on.
I know.
Yeah, but I think it's important just to talk about all these general things, because it's important to understand, to descend into literature. So if we have the framework of what's happening in Spain, it really helps to understand our literatures.
Yes, I agree with that. Okay, time is over. It's been great sharing this panel with you. Publishers here remain what I said for them. Thank you for coming, for your attention. It's been a pleasure being here with you. Hopefully we'll be here next year. Thank you.